All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
Hello and welcome to the All of Us Online Cafe. I'm Kelsey Mahaffey, the All of Us Project Director for 50 Forward, an All of Us Research Program National Community Engagement Partner for the NIH, located in Nashville, Tennessee. August is National Immunization Awareness Month, and we are happy to welcome Karen Hernan, RN, and 50 Forward, All of Us Peer Ambassador, to talk about some history of vaccines and the importance of immunizations. So Karen, it's so great to see you, and thank you for being with us on the All of Us Cafe again.
Hi, Kelsey. It's good to be with you today.
Now, for our viewers out there, just as a reminder, the All of Us Research Program is a new initiative from the National Institutes of Health to advance precision medicine. Another way to think about precision medicine is simply healthcare that is tailored to us as individuals rather than one size fits all. The program is seeking 1 million people from diverse backgrounds living in the United States to participate by sharing their health data. In the future, researchers will be able to study this diverse data set and hopefully make discoveries that will lead to better treatments and cures for all of us. You can learn more and even enroll in the program by visiting our website at joinallofus.org/50forward, and we'll be sure to put that website in the comments as well. So Karen, welcome again. And if you would, please go ahead and introduce yourself, your current roles, and maybe explain the subtle differences in the terms vaccines and immunizations that we all hear so often in the news lately.
All right. Well, hello. I live in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, and I've been a 50 Forward member for about 3 years. And I joined as a volunteer for the All of Us Research Program. I'm a registered nurse. I have a college education and over 3 decades of work experience. And I'm glad to share some of my information that I have learned about immunizations. The term vaccine or vaccination refers to the actual shot, the jab, that one gets to protect from a certain disease. And then immunization is the process. So immunization is the process of having the vaccines, developing the immunity to the diseases, and when everybody is vaccinated, the defense in public health.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
I want to also share that today's information is based on what I have learned in my career experience, my education, and I also want to reference a website published by the American Academy of Physicians, the Pennsylvania chapter. And that website has a very good timeline. It's a teaching tool for elementary or high school or college students. I found it very informative, comprehensive timeline, and you click on a time point and information and references come up.
Perfect. Well, that leads us right in to maybe talk about some vaccine history. So you can help us refresh our memories from our school days, but when was the first vaccine really created and what was the public response?
Well, in more modern times, we would go back to the 1700s. And that scientist, doctor, was named Edward Jenner. And Edward Jenner was concerned about cowpox and smallpox. And if you recall from history, smallpox was a huge scourge in the colonial period. So Edward Jenner is the first kind of the father of modern vaccines. And smallpox, polio, and measles are some of the disease processes that really wreaked havoc in communities. And the first vaccines about smallpox were noted in the UK. You can imagine Queen Victoria in the 1850s, a person who really promoted welfare for children. The Vaccine Act in the UK required infants and small children to receive the smallpox vaccine. Also in the late 1800s, 1855, in our state of Massachusetts, that law was enacted to vaccinate school children for smallpox. If you go after the Civil War and the Reconstruction era, 1878, yellow fever was a disease caused by mosquitoes that ravaged in the Mississippi towns. And in that time, the communities were activated from the military. So military healthcare was set up in communities to combat the epidemic of yellow fever. And then I did have a little piece of information, the turn of the century of 1905, regarding smallpox vaccines. The US Supreme Court said that it was constitutionally appropriate for a mandate for smallpox vaccines.
Wow. And you briefly mentioned polio. I know a lot of our viewers out there remember the polio outbreak and probably even remember receiving that polio vaccine. Can you talk a little bit more about polio, and did that vaccine development change the public's perception about vaccines?
Modern history shows the polio surged in the summertime. And what I had learned from that timeline website was the 1900s. In the summer, polio was surging, and particularly bad in 1916 in Brooklyn, New York. And during this time, this is a densely populated area. Family routine was just turned upside down. You got a quarantine sign on the front door of your home. Amusement parks, swimming pools, gatherings were closed and restricted. People had to stay at home. So this is where maybe people would remember about the scourge of polio. Then you have a president, Franklin Roosevelt, who was a victim of childhood polio and his paralysis. And they did everything in the media to not highlight the paralysis. But he had a heart for children that were suffering from this disease, and he was the fundraiser. So Franklin Roosevelt developed fundraising through ballroom dancing. It was called birthday balls, which were dancing contests. And that led to the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis Research. That was the late 1930s. Another tidbit is an entertainer on the radio, Eddie Cantor, was encouraging people to send dimes to the White House. And that progressed to the March of Dimes Foundation. So that money fundraising led to funding vaccine research, and then led to the 1950s, where Dr. Salk was the one who founded the killed virus polio vaccine, which was the first polio vaccine given to millions and millions of children and basically reduced polio incidence. And they found that the Salk vaccine was 80% effective against the paralytic polio. And after that research was done, the FDA licensed the polio vaccine.
Oh, wow. That's great history on polio. It's interesting that you mentioned the quarantine. So that's a new thing for some of us that did not live through the era of polio, but sounds like that's not anything new to quarantine.
All of these terms from public health have been around for hundreds of years. And public health was the way that communities clamped down on the spread of an epidemic. And these terms are old in history, but now it's to a new generation of listeners. It's to all of us as listeners, and we're becoming, you know, these terms are now everyday words that we use.
Yeah. So great. So you mentioned a lot about the importance for infants and young children, especially with polio, that they were receiving that vaccine as children. What is the benefit to giving infants vaccines? Most of us that have young children, you know, we go to the doctor and have all of our vaccines for our children given. Can you talk a little bit about that, about why it's important to get vaccines to infants and young children?
Yes, the vaccine, introducing the vaccine to the young child, infants and toddlers usually, primes their immune system to be able to mount a defense against the vaccine, against the disease. It's just one tool. A child has to have healthy nutrition, a clean place to live and sleep, and you know, not be ill from other chronic diseases. But this is one tool that, quote, modern science and medicine has enabled us to live a long, healthy life. So introducing the vaccine in the infant, toddler years is what has been happening since probably the 50s, 60s, 70s. My talk today, you may recall having vaccines. You may recall when you were a child having a vaccine. I recall a lot as a mother bringing my children to get their vaccines. And it was just something of what you did for the responsibility of raising children in their early childhood times. A vaccine card was, I remember them, they were heavy duty paper, and you kept it in a safe place with your bills or other documents for your family. You had to bring that to the doctor's office so they could fill that in by hand when you got the shot. And then oftentimes you had to bring that to the school system. So incorporating the school system, having documentation that you had the shot, most people did not question authority. They went and it was told them that they had to do it, and they did it, and they brought it in. Also, they developed the meningitis vaccine, and that was important for kids going to college, kids going to school, to camp, because science was seeing these outbreaks in dorms or in dormitories or camp environments where a respiratory virus was loose and causing meningitis. I always remember getting a vaccine information sheet from the doctor. You got it from the manufacturer or you got it from the CDC, gave you all this information about the vaccine, answered your questions. Then as I learned more about flu shots, the system where it's computerized, when you can register that you had a side effect or an adverse event, it's called the VERS computerized system. So a person can put information regarding their own side effects that they've experienced, or you report this to a pharmacist or a healthcare provider, and they are required to enter that data into the VERS system. So that is a comprehensive collection of side effects. And I also want to highlight that the role of the school health, so usually it would be a community physician, school nurses, and the city health department was always central for keeping up with childhood immunizations and keeping up as the immunizations community and school system work together. The parents, I should say, the parents, the school system, and the community work together to make sure all the kids were up to date on their vaccines.
Yeah.
And I guess say it's just trust. It's trust in the system. It's trust in the authorities. And perhaps nowadays we have more critical thinking, we have more ability to vocalize our own opinions, and through social media, we have an increase of exchange of information.
For the past year, the COVID-19 vaccine has dominated the news, but distrust of vaccines is nothing new. Can you talk about some other vaccines that were also once controversial or still remain controversial?
Yes, I believe in the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, more and more families looked at childhood vaccines as something and questioned, is this necessary? And families were worried about the ingredients in the vaccine that perhaps could cause autism, perhaps could cause other long-term consequences. And a lot of media attention was applied to this. And again, the onset or the emergence of computers and people able to talk and share, a growing number of families declined to immunize their children. This may or may not have led to an increase in diseases that are preventable and that have reemerged. Everybody has a right to do what they think is right for their family, but the swirl of information and the swirl of some misinformation may have just gone a little bit too far. And now there is a trend to families not vaccinating their children. And then this issue presents to the school system or the daycare system, etc. I do know that the Lancet, which is a premier medical journal, had evaluated evidence that about the link between autism and immunizations, and it has come out with there is no link. That is the official word from the Lancet medical journal. The methodology of the research studies was not 100% for science, or I would say not to a high level of science, and they cannot prove a link between autism and immunizations.
Right. Yeah.
Meningitis, when that came up, when a meningitis outbreak occurred in college dorms or camps, many people were ready to have their vaccines. But again, if the family chose not to vaccinate their child when they were 1 and age zero, what is the likelihood that they're going to say, we will have a 15-year-old vaccinated? Onset of new vaccine to prevent the human papilloma virus that was introduced, I guess, in the 2000s to vaccinate 12-year-old girls and boys so they would prevent cervical cancer. And that virus, that has a lot of questions. Why are we introducing this to these preteens and assuming that they are having unprotected sex? So that is a big question, and information and choice to the family was appropriate. The vaccine resistance does result in increases of incidence of whooping cough, for example, or increases of other diseases. So we have to look at the 20 years that it's had vaccine hesitancy with families choosing to vaccinate their young children, and then the migration patterns in our country, and just the density of how we are living now in cities and suburbs where a virus or an epidemic can spread very, very easily because of the density of how we live.
Right. And I love the point you made that, you know, it is okay to question and discuss, but we want to make sure that we're getting our information from credible sources. You know, like you mentioned, how Word can travel fast, quicker with the internet than ever before. And to really, just make sure that we're highlighting getting information from credible sources such as the CDC, the World Health Organization, the National Institutes of Health, trusted organizations to give us our health information. So let's look to also about the COVID vaccine. Most people are considering taking the COVID vaccine, have taken the COVID vaccine. Those that have chosen not to take it, hopefully are questioning again if that is with the resurgent of the Delta strain that they might want to consider taking that vaccine. But what are some other vaccines that, especially older adults, what should they stay current on in addition to the COVID-19 vaccine?
Yes, it's an important, even if we're in a crisis, to focus on normalcy and focus on what is in the recommended schedule of vaccinations. The flu shot, as you hit 60, it's recommended to take a 2-dose pneumonia shot that prevents hospitalization and death due to pneumonia. Shingles will prevent, the shingles vaccine can prevent a very painful outbreak of shingles, and that is nothing fun. Tetanus is recommended every 10 years for everybody, and any kind of accident, if you go in with a laceration and you want that laceration stitched up, they're going to say, when's your tetanus shot? So keeping up to date with that is a tetanus shot. I think that's all my memory serves me right now.
Yeah, those are great. And what are some steps that we can take to help improve the public's understanding just about vaccines in general and how they're developed?
Well, this all goes to health literacy. Health literacy is the ability to read information that hopefully is at an 8th grade level, and it is from it is written in plain language, so one can understand the benefits and the side effects of the vaccine. Side effects are usual, and side effects are expected, and they're mild. So you have to consider the information of the overall benefit. What is the overall benefit to you, your family, your routine and normalcy, and the big picture of public health? What is the risk of taking this to you, your family, your routine, overall public health? And if you can understand and ask a question to a source, like a nurse, a healthcare provider, somebody that you trust, you can determine through your own thinking and your own decision making what is right for you.
That's perfect. So one final question, Karen, before we close for today. As a 50 Forward Peer Ambassador for the All of Us research program, I'd love it if you could talk a bit about All of Us and how this program works and your hopes for future medical research with the program, including vaccine development.
Well, I am honored to be a participant and as a promoter and ambassador to ask people to please consider signing up to participate in the program. You can do surveys online that those responses give data to researchers. You can give a blood sample, a urine sample. That data will be that sample will be data for researchers. A health history, just a simple 10-minute health history, can be information that will be useful for researchers. You are well informed, and again, you need to read and understand and ask questions and learn what is my risk? What is the benefit for doing this? I think it's a low risk, high benefit opportunity to accelerate the way the United States performs medical research. Our tax dollars are funding this. This has been approved through the Obama administration. It's in 3 or 4 years of a 10-year cycle, and it's moving on track. We are meeting our goals despite the pandemic. The whole program has gone virtual, using YouTube videos, using your home computer to give the data to the researchers. And when we think of our Vanderbilt University as being involved with the data housing in the cloud, and the Mayo Clinic being the recipient of the lab results and the actual test tubes and urine test tubes, it is a phenomenon to see how fortunate we are in the United States to have a system like this. And it's my honor to be able to just be one millionth of the program.
Yeah, that's so great. And you are 1 in a million, Karen, along with 400,000 that have almost joined the program so far. Like you said, we are meeting our numbers. We're getting closer to 500,000. We'd love to get that 1 million number. But
the opportunity for the voice of populations, for African Americans, for Latinos, for the gay, lesbian, bi, gender, LGBTQ population, all populations, to be able to have their voice heard and be included. And I will say the older adult was never included in any type of medical research. And sure enough, a 20-year-old person and a 75-year-old person have different experiences, different needs, and react differently, and need to be recognized as part of the group.
Yeah, so true. And just what I was going to say as well, we're on the same page, because the number I'm so excited about with the All of Us research program, in addition to the almost 400,000 enrolled so far, is that diversity number, that we have more than 80% of those currently enrolled in the All of Us research program are coming from historically underrepresented communities in biomedical research. And some of those groups are just the ones that you just mentioned. So that's so exciting. And really, that's, to me, really one of the greatest statistics that the program has to offer so far. So Karen, I think that concludes our time today. I just want to thank you so much again for being with us to share all of this important information on vaccines for National Immunization Awareness Month. For our listeners out there, we're going to be putting websites in the comment section for you to visit the CDC for more information on the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as our website for joinallofus.org/50forward on how you can make a difference and learn more about the program. You can enroll online, answer surveys, and start giving back today. So Karen, any last words before we go?
Just all of you watching, thank you for listening to me. Remember that this is my education experience and information I received from the website, American College of Physicians, Pennsylvania chapter. Google that website and you will be intrigued about the history of vaccines and immunization.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you all for watching. If you've enjoyed today's presentation and would like some more information on vaccines or the All of Us research program, including how you can participate, please reach out. Be sure to visit our website at joinallofus.org/50forward. And we would love for you to consider becoming 1 in a million with All of Us. Thank you again, Karen. Thank you to all of you watching, and have a great rest of the day.